Roguelike is a tag you'll see cropping up anywhere you look, so long as you're not outside. It's used to describe all kinds of games that could initially seem to have absolutely nothing in common. Despite being one of the oldest styles of games, arguably not a genre but a core mechanic. Roguelike games are still constantly evolving and always keeping ahead of the curve, throwing new and exciting gameplay at the players from around every corner. Seriously, Rogue is almost 45 years old. That's older than my RuneScape account by quite a long way, and yet the games that it has spawned are still cutting edge. So, what is a roguelike game, and what is like Rogue? Rogue is a game from 1980 where you play as a letter of the alphabet, going around killing or picking up other letters of the alphabet until you've completed the alphabet or something. The important feature is that Rogue randomizes the levels every time you play. No two runs are the same. Roguelikes have become a game style in their own right, built around Rogue's short runs and infinite level layouts. You'll lose a lot and have to start afresh every time, but you'll always find something new. Progression normally comes from a player's increase in mastery of the game's systems rather than some kind of stat increase. Dark Souls is quite easily arguably a roguelike in many ways. Different games take this key mechanic and attach it to loads of different genres to create completely unique mashups every time. Balatro, which revolves around playing cards, feels totally different to the bullet hell potato game Brotato, despite the fact that they share the roguelike tag and their names are direct anagrams of one another. So where did this all begin? You might think that games called roguelikes evolved from a game called Rogue, but you can actually take it back a little bit further. In 1978, Beneath Apple Manor was released. The game is about delving into a randomly generated dungeon to retrieve a golden apple, with each playthrough being completely different. This predates Rogue by a couple of years, but still shows lots of similar elements that made Rogue so popular. Rogue was released in 1980, taking the fledgling gaming world by storm, and inspiring countless game devs to make other games with similar core mechanics, like Moria in 1983. Moria is a Lord of the Rings themed game very similar to Rogue, but it adds a persistent town where players can buy and sell items during a run. This allowed more character progression on each playthrough, with different items boosting characters' stats, and therefore making certain parts of the game slightly easier to overcome. A feature that has since been a staple of roguelikes. After Moria came Hack in 1984, a game that brings in a time limit in the form of hunger and also an inevitable character death at the end, with the character's score coming from the number of game points held at the character's death. This ending has become another popular recurring motif in roguelikes. Moria and Hack split Rogue's successors into two different groups with similar inspirations but different focuses. For years after, games that follow Rogue's layout are similar but with iterations as technology and development budgets increased. It is only recently that the genre has taken a massive leap forwards. Games are being developed that centre around the feeling of Rogue, with harder difficulty and permadeath, but step away from evolving the actual gameplay of dungeon crawling. This boom was helmed by indie devs, often small teams or single people with very limited resources. I think because it's the perfect way to create games that have a smaller development scope, but still lots of deep gameplay. There are loads of these indie roguelikes to talk about, and plenty that's already been said elsewhere. My personal favourite is Slay the Spire. Tapping into a love for deck building games I already held, you can go check out our video on deck building for more info there. Slay the Spire has you crafting a deck of cards. Each card gives you special actions to use in battle as you fight your way up a procedurally generated tower, full of monsters to slay and loot to spire. I'm assuming that's where it gets its name from. Every time you play, the tower is different, and every card you find along the way is completely random, so the deck you build feels completely fresh every game. I had a deck for the champion which revolves around building huge defense and then attacking with my defense stat, and another that dealt more damage the more damage I took, leading to a delicate balancing act where I had to let the enemies hit me to then deliver devastating counterattacks. Both decks started with the same characters and the same cards, but led to completely different playstyles.
What makes roguelikes so popular then? Replayability, overlapping genres, unique experiences, leading into community engagement. That kind of works, doesn't it? Obviously, replayability is a massive factor in the success of roguelikes. The more you play, the more you learn about the game's systems, allowing you to build up your own skills at your own pace. And who doesn't like to experience a sense of mastery? Hand in hand with this replayability, roguelikes often employ shorter play sessions that allow players to dip in and out at times that they might have otherwise used to play Candy Crush or Doomscroll. Because roguelikes are more of a mechanic than an actual genre themselves, they're ripe for mashing in with other genres. There's the more broad action roguelikes such as Dead Cells and Hades, roguelike deck builders like Slay the Spire, Vampire Survivors spawning its own subgenre, the tower defense roguelike Emberward, the poker roguelike Balatro, the pachinko roguelike Peglin. There really is something for everyone. It's the last point though, however clumsily put, that I think is most important to the success of roguelikes. Each player gets a unique, procedurally generated experience that becomes their own story. If they do something cool, they share it with others, which prompts more people to share their discoveries of powerful and fun synergies within the game's systems, and ultimately creates a community around the game. Communities are one of the most powerful contributors to a game's success, spreading the word and inviting new players to join in. These communities can also create mods that extend the game's lifespan for the most dedicated gamers. Mods that are often easier to create for roguelikes. Adding a few new items, relics or modifiers can produce a lot of gameplay for a much smaller cost than creating a similar quantity of new content for a linear, story-based game.
So, what's the drawback of the roguelike? What are we working with when we make one? And what problems do we have to mitigate? To examine this, let's have a little look at a couple of my favourites from the genre. Faster Than Light, FTL, and For the King, FTK. Now, the greatest strength of the genre, that thing that sticks in our mind, gets it to have one more go, that's also its downfall. That unexpected journey we take, the randomly generated levels that so often leaves us wanting another go, can also make you feel like a random fluke has doomed you to fail. In FTL, an unexpected lack of ships to fight or no shops can leave you without fuel with no hope. A sudden spate of nasty fights with lasting effects and For the King can just spell the end. These injustices can really damage our heart to go on. And by really damage our heart to go on, I mean drive us into an indescribable rage where we throw our controllers through the window and invent 13 separate new curses for whoever visited this hell upon us. And then inevitably we go outside, retrieve the controller and start a new playthrough. I think FTL and For the King are really good implementations of roguelike mechanics. And yet, both of these games have these pitfalls. In less polished entries in the genre, these rare Kobayashi Maru moments go from epic pieces of adventure to cripplingly frequent. And it's this balance, this tuning of the game that really separates the diamonds from the rough. Another issue, one all too common with FTL and FTK, is a personal one. I've slaved over the good ship Phantom. I know its crew. I've been with them through countless boarding actions. I've sacrificed blood, sweat and tears. And yet I make a bad decision, a bit of bad luck, something doesn't go my way and poof, my beloved ship is gone, lost forever. And For the King has the same problem, you know, Sir Bonkalot has come so far, he's fought so hard, and yet a quick death, he's gone forever. Maybe you're sat there thinking, but Matt, you don't understand how roguelikes are supposed to work. You're not supposed to get attached. But I counter, dear viewer. How can I not? Again, this is more a problem to work around. One to be overcome or mitigated rather than a fundamental flaw. Leaderboards or memorials or some other record can really let players relive part of the joy of that groundbreaking Thunder Run. But that leads on to another limitation. How many runs does a player need to do before they start running into the same situations, the same enemies again and again and again? If the game is relying on new challenges, exploration to keep the player invested, that's where the roguelike dies. And this is where FTL and For the King really come into their own as games. They have great replayability. They both have great feeling, great vibes. They are fun to explore, but they're both interesting and stimulating games in themselves. Even when you know all the weapons, abilities, options that you have, the likelihood of you ever encountering them exactly the same way keeps the game fresh. It's the interactions between all the weapons and the levels that make them interesting. Take the weapons in FTL. A hull laser is very good at attacking some kinds of ships, but not others. A burst laser, on the other hand, has its own strings. Take that for any weapon there is, and just in weapons versus targets, you get a wide plethora of different interactions. It's a fantastic way to bring new and interesting problems that keep the player engaged, even once the effect of, what's this? This is new, has worn off.
Where do roguelikes go from here? Frankly, there's not much reason for them to slow down. They're ideal for the indie game developer, for whom creating engaging gameplay from a tightly refined collection of systems is immensely rewarding. And it's equally rewarding for the players who get to explore interactions between the systems in as much depth as they desire, and within communities that share and compete, providing a healthy dose of social interaction. Procedural generation and run-based gameplay are not going anywhere, and I am looking forward to the day that every single game ever invented has its own genre of roguelike.
Oh no. Oh.
Don't know what to do.
Me neither. I'm gonna just sit like this. This is